morning, all empathic, sensitive souls. It is Wednesday. I am Denise, your intuitive emotional healer. I am here with Monday's card draw again, Ghostlands. We had this one last week, and apparently, now I got thinking on this the other night that it's getting close to Halloween, and Halloween is when the veil becomes thin and our loved ones can come in closer, those that have passed. Some believe, some don't. I really don't care. This is my belief. But during this time of year, especially Halloween, especially with the fall harvest, especially with coming down out of the craziness that is summer and fall harvesting and getting prepped for winter, it's time to slow down. It's time to gather together. It's time to make the chili and the chicken noodle soup or the potato soup, or my favorite is, oh, what is it? Olive Garden has it, but it's with kale and potatoes and bacon. Oh, love it. But it's time to gather together, make those casseroles, gather your family, fresh baked bread, baked cookies. I remember coming home from school and Mom would always have oatmeal raisin cookies. Now, I was the weird kid. I loved raisins. Now, I'm not dissing chocolate chips by any means, but I also loved cinnamon raisin cookies, or raisin cookies, or oatmeal cookies with raisins. And then she would change it up, and once in a while throw some chips in there. Woo! Fancy cowboy cookies. You know, stuff that was rib packing, because the colder it got, the more energy you used. And of course, as kids, we were kicked outside to play in the snowbanks. We had chores to do because I grew up on a farm, and there were always chores, always animals to feed, always dogs and cats to pet. There's always things that we had to do before we could go sledding. But we expended a lot of energy running around, doing work, plus playing and keeping warm. And I don't know, we didn't have Wonder Bread, but we used the bread bags in our shoes and our boots to keep our feet dry, because we didn't have fancy boots. It wasn't until I was in high school, I think, that I finally got a pair of like snowmobile type boots to keep warm, because my feet were always freezing. Crazy memories. I can sit and reminisce about this, but transitioning from the fall into the winter, we start to slow down. We gather those around us, and what do we do when we gather? We reminisce, we laugh, we remember the crazy stories. Remember that time, or your grandfather, or your auntie, and the kids love it. The kids really love the reminiscing, because it brings the people they see and picture to life. Now, I am very lucky that my dad was involved in the lives of my great nieces and nephews, which would be his great grandkids. And they remember him, and they celebrate his birthday. Oh, hey, it's Grandpa's birthday month. We got to get him a cake. Okay. But it's the reminiscing, and it's the remembering, and keeping those memories alive, keeping those people alive. Hey, remember the time that Dad did this or Mom did this? And the kids love it. There's nothing wrong with doing that. The problem arises when, and I am very guilty of it, is a sound, scent, especially a scent, a sight, something will trigger a memory, and suddenly I am pulled back into that emotion, and it is either extremely sad or heart-wrenching. And then it takes me a while to pull myself up out of that memory, to pull myself up out of how I felt. And I have to keep reminding myself that it's a memory and it's okay to feel it, but I can't live in that. I cannot continue to be sad and melancholy. And it doesn't help me learn and grow if I'm continually sad and melancholy, or I'm pulled in that spiral pit of despair, or if that dramatic or traumatic memory is taking control of my life. And that happens. It happens a lot, and I see a lot of people go through it. Not just me and not just my family. And I'm a traditionalist. I like my traditions. Now, how do I know this? Because I like specific Christmas colors. I'm not into light blue and pink. That's not, for me, traditional Christmas. Now, I love light blue and pink, and it's fine for other people's Christmas, but my Christmas, I want the traditional red and green. I am a traditionalist. I have always been this way. I like things done the way they've always been done. It's just, for me, it's a comfort because it's a continuous cycle of, and I like the good traditions, not the, yeah. But I can pick and choose what traditions I like. And I can pick and choose what makes me feel comfortable and what makes me happy. And the traditions that don't, I set them to the side now. I don't have to keep following exactly what those that have gone before me have done. I can tweak them to what I need in this here and now, and I have learned to be okay with it. There was an example of a lady, and she was on our public station, and she was doing a talk, and she said that every Sunday my mom would fix a roast, and she would cut off a slice of the roast. And I asked Mom, why do you do that? I don't know, Grandma always did it. We just always cut off that last chunk of the roast before we put it in the pan and put our au jus or vegetable broth or whatever with it, and the potatoes and the carrots and the onions. Okay. And one day Grandma was there, and Grandma goes, what are you doing? She goes, I'm cutting off the end of the roast to put in the pot. And she goes, why are you wasting that meat? She goes, well, you did. She goes, I had a smaller pot. I had to cut off that chunk so the roast would fit in the pot. You follow the tradition without knowing the reason why. And some of those traditions you don't need to follow anymore. So we do this Ghostland, we do this reminiscing and staying in the past when it's not beneficial to us. And we don't need to cut that chunk of the roast off because Grandma did it so it would fit in her darn pot because her pot was smaller than the pot we have today. So why are we wasting that meat? Now, did Grandma waste the meat? Oh, I'm sure she did not. I'm sure she used it for something else, right? Because that's what we did. But to understand why the traditions were that way. Now, the traditions that I like are, I always watch Miracle on 34th Street. I always watch The Wizard of Oz. There's certain shows that I will watch at specific times of the year because that's tradition. I will always double check when I go out the door. I got my keys, I got my garage door opener, I got my glasses, I got my mask. Yes, I still wear a mask. I've got everything that I need for the day. And it's a habit now, and it's a good tradition habit that I say this as I'm going out. Oh, I got my lunch, right? Another one. Because if I don't, I get to the car and I'm like, what am I missing? And then I have to come back in the house. Or there's traditions that every year for Christmas, I set out a glass of milk and a cookie for Santa. And then, of course, when we were kids, it was a carrot for the reindeer. Nowadays, they put sparkles and oatmeal for the reindeer. But it's their tradition. For the Easter Bunny, you put out a little bit of lettuce and a couple carrots. And now my niece puts out Easter cookies. Okay, but it is what works for them. And there's nothing wrong with changing some of that up. You have to change with what works in the here and now. So instead of living in the past, bring yourself into what works now. What's best for you now? And then getting stuck in the future. How many of us daydream? The what ifs. The if I did this, if I said this, if I go down this path, if I act this way, then what will happen? If I win the lottery, if my car continues to work. It's all these what if, what if, what if, and daydreaming. And there's nothing wrong with planning for the future and daydreaming about what can be, but then you have to pull yourself back and work in the here and now. Work towards that goal. When I am thinner, I will XYZ. Well, why can't I start planning to do XYZ no matter what size I am? Or if my size bothers me that much, work on shrinking my size so when I do X, Y, and Z, it's healthier, or I fit in my swimsuit, or whatever the case may be. So there's that fine line. And if you have trouble staying in the here and now, if you have trouble with pulling yourself out of some of those not so nice emotions that drag you down the spiral pit of despair, that, as I like to call it, and won't let you surface, or if you surface, it likes to drag you back down again, let me know. I can help you work through those feelings and those emotions, so when they grab at you again, they don't have such a strong grip, and you can break free of them. I love helping people work through the emotions so they can succeed and do what they want to do with their life, not how their emotions control them, because a lot of times the emotions do. I get it. I still go through it. Every week I'm still working on trying to make myself, or help myself, work through the shadow side. Everyone has shadows. Without light, you can't have shadows, and right? So if you need help working through that, let me know. As an intuitive emotional healer, I love to help people succeed. I love to help people achieve their dream, achieve what they want to get to. Drop me a comment, reply back to an email, contact me. Let me know. Hopefully the rest of the week, I'm saying that it's going to be smooth sailing. Ghostland cards. Don't live in the past. Don't live in the future. Pull yourself into the here and now. Stay safe, everyone. I will chat in on Friday and see how the rest of the week has gone. Bye for now.